What's up guys, it's Flossin, and today I wanted to have a discussion about something I've seen in the comment section recently, especially after the release of my Soldier 11 guide. People have been asking me if Mindscapes and signature engines are actually worth pulling for. Now, if you've been following me for a while, you know I talk a lot about picking up extra copies of characters, but I also highly value Mindscapes and signature weapons. So today, I want to walk you through my thought process, why I prefer pulling Mindscapes and Sig weapons, how I approach banners in gacha games like Zenless, and whether this is better than grabbing multiple agents. But first, let me just say this. Everything I'm about to say is just my opinion. You're free to play the game however you want, so no need for riots in the comments. If this video ends up helping you out, don't forget to drop a like down below. It's completely free and lets me know that you enjoy this type of content. Now, with formalities out of the way, let's talk games. Alright, let's dive right in. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I'm a firm believer in pulling from Mindscapes and signature weapons over chasing every new agent. The reason? Well, their value isn't just great, it grows over time, especially as new characters get added to the game. Zenless, like many other gacha games, locks a lot of potential behind these Mindscapes. And while it can be frustrating, it does make sense from a design perspective. No one would feel tempted to pull if, for example, you got Nicole's M6 with just one copy. A perfect example of this is Rina's Mindscape 1. For those who don't know, this Mindscape extends her pen ratio duration by an extra 5.5 seconds. If you use Rina, you know just how insane this is. Rina's already the best support for electric and anomaly teams in patch 1.3, but the difference between an M0 and an M1 Rina is like night and day. Being able to switch her in, do a single basic attack, and leave her off field for almost 15 seconds is a massive boost. It lets your on-field DPS stay active longer and deal more damage without constant rotations. But it's not just about standard agents like Rina or Nicole. Juyuin is another great example. Her M1 gives the potential of 18 ether bullets if you execute your rotations properly. Then there's Caesar King, whose first Mindscape slaps a 15% all attribute res shred on enemies nearby. These kind of upgrades are game changers and can push a character from good to absolutely busted. We've seen similar power spikes in Hoyo vs other games like Honkai Star Rail. Do I need to mention Acheron and how she completely breaks the game at Eidolon 2? These type of upgrades are a huge deal and often worth prioritizing. Now let's talk about signature W engines. These are another reason I heavily prefer investing in Mindscapes and Sigs over new agents. These engines are tailor-made for their corresponding agents and synergize perfectly with their playstyle. Take Ambi, for example. Her signature W engine boosts electric damage and gives her energy regen when she dodge counters. And what does Ambi's core skill revolve around? You guessed it, dodge counters. It's like the engine was designed specifically for her, because, well, it was. Now, I'll admit that these effects might seem broad at first. Other agents can technically use these engines and still perform well, but when you see how much synergy they have with their intended agent, it starts to make you wonder if pulling their signature should even be a question. Let's talk about Yanagi's W engine, Time Weaver. This engine boosts electric anomaly buildup, special attacks, EX special attacks, anomaly proficiency, and disorder damage. Now, on paper, this seems pretty flexible. Grace, for instance, can use it effectively. But here's the catch. Time Weaver's last line reads, disorder damage inflicted by the equipper increases by 25%. Basically meaning, Grace has to be the one proccing disorder in the team to fully benefit from this W engine. Now, again, that's not impossible. You can just tweak your rotations to make it work. You have Bernice apply burn on your enemy, and then switch to Grace to proc the disorder. Pretty easy, right? Or you could just pull Yanagi. Because Yanagi's kit procs Polarity Disorder, this engine works naturally without any extra setup. No brainpower required. This kind of specialization is something I expect to see more as Zenless evolves. Right now, many of these engines are general enough to work across multiple agents, but over time, I think we'll see more engines that are highly specialized for their counterpart agent, much like we see in other Hoyoverse games. Now, I wanted to share my philosophy when it comes to banners in Zenless. Starting from patch 1.0, we had Ellen and Juyuin. Since it was the game's release, there were tons of free pulls, meaning you either could have gotten Ellen or Juyuin. I ended up picking Juyuin because, well, let's just say her bakery caught my eye, but also because Nicole was on her banner. I saved all through Ellen's banner, and by the time GUN dropped, I had enough pulls to grab her W engine, 6 copies of Nicole, and 5 copies of Nicole's signature engine. That set me up with a solid ether coverage from the start. Plus, I slotted in Ambi because I already had a couple Mindscapes for her, and she synergized perfectly with Nicole. So when patch 1.1 rolled around after, I skipped Qingyi's banner entirely, even though she's far better than Ambi in almost every way. Also at that point, I had heavily invested into GUN's team, so I couldn't justify pulling another agent and starting from scratch. But the real reason why I skipped Qingyi was because of this. And no, I'm not talking about Jane. I'm talking about this. Remember what I said about forcing Grace with Yanagi's W engine? Sure, I could have pulled Time Weaver for Grace and moved around a couple of my rotations to make it work, or I could have just pulled Yanagi. In this case, I decided to just pull Ambi. I decided to go all out on this banner, not for Jane Doe, but for Ambi's upgrades. I saw this as a chance to not only scale Ambi with her Mindscapes, but also grab her signature engine, which synergizes perfectly with her dodge counter playstyle. Plus, Seth was a part of this banner, and he's a great teammate for both Jane and Ambi. Now, if you were around during that time, you know exactly how those pulls went for me. I lost both the 50-50 and the 75-25 on Jane. It stung, but honestly, I still came out on top. By the end of that banner cycle, I had managed to get Jane Doe, Ambi's 6th Mindscape, 5 copies of her signature engine, and Seth along with his engine. While it wasn't a clean win, the upgrades I got for Ambi made her a permanent part of my teams, especially since her Mindscape fully unlocked her potential. This banner was a turning point for me. It cemented my approach of investing in agents over constantly pulling for new ones. So this brings me to my last point. Which is better, extra copies or new agents? Here's my take. If you love a character, you should pull for them. This game is meant to be fun, and if Yanagi or someone else catches your eye, don't let my opinion stop it. You can easily play these agents without their Sig weapon or Mindscapes, so don't feel pressured either. That said, for the average player, I do think grabbing new agents is generally more valuable. Not everyone has the luck or resources to chase Mindscapes and Sigs, and covering all elements with different agents gives you more flexibility in this game. While Sigs and Mindscapes are great, they're not necessary. I personally have all of my agents at M0, not really by choice, but it is what it is. Still though, I've cleared the entire Shiyu defense stages without any issues up to this point. I actually cleared the recent Shiyu with Bernice, and by the time I was done, I noticed Bernice didn't even have a W engine equipped. That just goes to show you how insane these characters can be. Mindscapes and Sigs are for players who want to optimize their builds or have extra resources to spend. They're amazing for future-proofing your agents, but newer agents will always be shiny and bring fresh value during their banner cycle. So you can't really go wrong with either approach. It just depends on your goals. But yeah, I think that's enough yapping out of me. But I'm curious, what about you? How do you approach banners in Zenless? Do you save for Mindscapes and signature weapons, or do you pull on every single banner? Let me know in the comments down below. And of course, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to drop a like down below. It's completely free and lets me know that you enjoy this type of content. Until next time though, happy gaming, and may your pulls be ever in your favor.